Great. Okay. Hi, everybody. Thank you for all coming and all being very prompt this month. It's brilliant. We're just in early November, so this is the Prior's Corner Investor Update for October 2021. I'm going to follow the format of the newsletter that I sent out earlier this morning. I'm going to try and stick to time today and keep this to 30 minutes. So I'll talk for hopefully just 20 minutes and then give you a chance to ask any questions. Most of you are either developers or aspiring developers. So I thought I'd start with some of the trials and tribulations. So we had a water leak in Unit 7, which was not a lot of fun. What I might actually even do is try and screen share whilst I'm talking about this, so you can see some of the images. The images are in the newsletter. Someone just wave at me to say yes, you can see the screen when you can see the screen. Brilliant, thank you very much. So if you recall, so Unit 7 is ground floor, main entrance. It's after the mailboxes, and there's a service riser. The first row on the left is Unit 7, so it's sort of front facing. It's a ground floor unit without any outside space. Inside there's a sort of inner lobby, and then in the lounge, in the far corner of the lounge, there's a boiler cupboard. So the pictures here are from the inside of the boiler cupboard. Now you can't, in the middle photo there, you can't really see any of the water on the floor. You can sort of see some slight marking there above the skirting, so that's water damage. Here you can see some lines for some water damage. It's not very clear, and there was water dripping down from some of this exposed pipework. Thankfully, my construction team it was their last day on site, and they were still on site when I noticed this. If you look on this left-hand photo where the mouse is, you can see the line of the water there. Up inside here, just about where the mouse is, it's not very clear, there is one of those plastic push fit joints, and it joins to some traditional copper piping, and that had failed. And this was all, the ceiling was all intact, but that had failed behind the plasterboard of the ceiling, and it had been dripping for a period of time that the contractor and I are disagreeing over. But it had been dripping for a period of time. Then this wasn't damage that had fallen down from the water. This was us hacking away at it to find the source of the problem. So there was the staining and the dark coloration on the plasterboards, but it was intact when we found it. And all of this was water damaged. There was water running down the pipes, and they were dripping off the bottom here onto the floor. So thankfully there was I had some contractors on site, so they hacked away at this. We found the leak, which was sort of approximately there where the push fit connects to the metal. And so we were able to turn the water off, isolate the problem, and clear up any excess water. Not the contractor who was on site, but the plumbing contractor from the original contract attended within by sort of 7 a.m. the next morning, very quickly, and fixed the original problem. And then it was a race against time, because having spent months trying to get Unit 7 through conveyancing, one of the first units to sell, in fact it was the first unit that was sale agreed ever, and it sat there doing conveyancing for 4 or 5 months, and then this happened on the day of exchange and 1 week before completion. So it was a rush at the last minute to get they do the urgent fix, then to get it dried out and get it redecorated. I drafted in my emergency decorator from Southampton, and he put the last coat of paint on at 10 a.m. on Friday, and we did key handover to the new owner at midday. So I mean, it was touch and go, but I had to make an early decision as to whether or not we were going to let the buyer know, or whether I could back my team to get it done. Because obviously we've already exchanged, we've already set a completion date. The funds had been requested from the lender. So had I let the solicitors know, there's no way they would have committed to sticking to that completion date. So we'd have had to reverse out getting the funds from the lender. We may have incurred a little bit of cost. So, it just caused a whole load of admin and hassle. So thankfully all avoided. There is actually, you can't see it here, but in this middle photo where these boards are, where they join, there's very, very slight, the joints have raised very slightly. It doesn't really impact the way the boards sit flush. They sit on the ground okay, but as you can imagine, that's where more water would get in. These boards are actually waterproof boards that are sort of specified to bathroom grade. They're a higher quality board, really, is the reason they happen to be bathroom grade, not specifically because they're for bathrooms. But that saved us, I think. If it hadn't been for the higher quality boards, we'd have had to rip a whole load of the flooring out. And this flooring, you may or may not remember, because I don't know how much of it I've shared, but this flooring is a really good quality Egger, E-G-G-E-R laminate flooring that is no longer produced. The last batch of it came off the factory around September last year, and we were one of the last deliveries of one of the last pallets. The contractor didn't tell me at the time, but we've really struggled in the studio flat upstairs to actually get this boarding. So that would have been a whole host of hassle that we have managed to avoid. So that I thought was worth sharing. I'll just come off screen share while we can keep chatting, so we have a more human contact. Last call, I was pretty bullish about having 8 units sale agreed. I did say 7 and 8 of those hadn't quite got sale agreed, but I was I was confident. So unit 7 did get sale agreed just fine, but the 8th unit didn't. That buyer actually didn't come through. They've been a little bit flaky, but they were certain, and then they weren't. The agent is hopeful they will come back. They have a habit of disappearing for a week or so and then reappearing. I'm not very confident about that, but he is. So the 8th sale didn't get sale agreed, but we have now sale agreed the 8th unit, which happens to be unit 8 as well. And that is the new show flat. So the original show flat was unit 1 on the ground floor, the equivalent same flat upstairs. We've moved the show furniture into. That's the units that's been sale agreed. He's not taking the furniture, which is good news, except it's a hassle because now I have to move the show flat again. But as we frequently see, when we dress units, they are more popular. So it's an interesting strategy to think about, either buying multiple dressing packs or just accepting that you will have to move the pack regularly. I'm considering buying more of the landlord spec pack that we put into unit 4 to dress some of the other units. It doesn't have the same wow factor, but it's £2,000, not £15,000. So yeah, works reasonably well. We're not quite pulling the trigger on that yet, because obviously, as you can all imagine, I'm very, very cost conscious, and I don't want to spend a penny that we don't need to. That sale is, we are now 50% sale agreed. That's the 8th sale. So it was not of unit 12, as I said last time we thought it was going to be. It's actually of unit 8. He has put his deposit down, and we're in the beginning of the process of going through the legal. So that's properly confirmed. Sale agreed at 225. Our original sale price on this unit was 235. The realistic pricing that we've all been working to is 215. So this is actually £10,000 more than that initial realistic pricing, which is great, and is vindicating why we are being a little bit circumspect about not advertising individual units at the new reduced prices, because every now and then when we find a buyer who's willing to come forward, they are quite often willing to pay decent money. We still, to this day, have actually a very good conversion rate from interest to purchaser. What we don't have is large swathes of interest coming in the front door. So it's great that we're doing okay on that. So I've kind of concluded we have a sustained level of buying interest, sustained at a relatively low level. It's certainly not strong, but it is consistent. As we speak, there are 2 leads that the agent Chris is still following up. Yeah, we're not quite rushing through them as we'd like, but we are making good quality, steady progress. So as of today, we have also completed 2 more sales. So in total, we have 4 sales completed. So those are units 1, 5, 7, and 11. And we have sale agreed for other units, which is 2, 3, 4, and 8. So ground floor has been the most popular, except for the duplex, which we are struggling with. And then upstairs, unit 8 has sale agreed, the one that was the new show flat, and unit 11 has actually already completed. And just a quick word on unit 1. Unit 1 has sold to a cash buyer, and she has completed so fast. I've sort of lost track of how quick it is, to be honest. It was incredible, and it just goes to show just exactly what can be achieved when you want to go quickly. I think she did it in about 3 weeks. It might have been 5, but because she's cash, she had the ability to choose whether or not to do searches, or to waive searches, or to get search insurance, which is the single, but that and financing are the 2 longest time factors that you can't control. And she wanted to beat the stamp duty holiday. So obviously in March, stamp duty holiday came down from 500 to 250, and that was the headlines that got most people excited. But actually, sorry, not March, excuse me, June, there was actually 3 further months at 250 where you could pay 0 stamp up to 250. She's not a first-time buyer, so she was going to have to pay SDLT. And end of September, that 250 just got totally removed and went down to 0. So she was adamant she wanted to save several £1,000s. She pushed her solicitor and she got it done, which is great news. So that was all good. And just worth mentioning that actually cash can still be king occasionally. Okay, so moving on, we have finished the external works. So I'll just show you some photos. I'll share again. So the external works are bin store, bike store, and fencing and gates to the gardens, to a specific specification that the planners, hard, as we all know, are particularly hard work. So bin store and bike store in particular were to a specification that the planners have agreed. I'll leave those photos up there, but I'm just going to look back at my notes to remember to make sure everything else to mention. Yes, so this photo bottom right here, this is the bin store. Now we had to move the bin store. Originally, it was going to be, as you come in the gate, it was going to be on the right-hand side, sort of tucked away in the corner there. That wasn't allowed because the refuse trucks will not stop on a roundabout, and they won't drive in to a car park where they then have to sort of do a 3-point turn to reverse. So we had to allow them to stop on the highway. They will stop on the highway if it's sort of 50 yards or more away from a junction. So in our case, the roundabout. So the bin store has been moved right to the other end of the site. If you look at this photo here, the top left photo, you can just see that is where the bin store is now. You can just see the edge of it there. And we have cut through the front wall and hedge. I don't have a photo of it, sorry. So that they will stop on the highway, and then they walk through our little cut through, go and get the bins from this bin store in here, drag the bins sort of across that section of the car park. There's a small tree, if you remember, in the corner there, out onto the highway. So not of particular consequence. We moved 2 parking spaces in place of the bin store, and so we've done a straight swap bin store and 2 parking spaces. So in that respect, it wasn't a significant change. The refuse people were not consulted initially with the initial planning application, which was a mistake by Hart Council that then we have to pay for by losing sort of 4 to 8 weeks of time when we could have been getting on with the works. Thankfully, not on the critical path in any way. Another frustration.
Did you have to chop down a tree, Rob, to get that all in, or not?
So behind here, there was sort of mature hedging that we have chopped down, but the tree for access, the gap, the tree is still in place. The gap is actually just next to where the tree is. So we have kept the tree that's just inside our boundary.
Right, okay.
But behind here, we have had to chop this. This was some plant that the lady next door here in this house that I'm just moving my mouse over was particularly fond of and loved the smell of. She has now had a proper strop at me about the bin store being right next to her property, and has come up with all manner of imagined terrors that come out of bins, especially bins that don't have a roof on the bin store, and has made she started off all nice and friendly, and I've exhausted that, and she's made a complaint to the council about what we've done with the bin store, and she's convinced I am the epitome of evil now, and that I was doing extra works upstairs, and that must be suspicious because I was doing what we were doing all those extra works. So those works are actually the 14-16 separation works. She doesn't have any, as far as I can see, that she has not a shred of evidence of anything we've done wrong, because we haven't done anything wrong, and there's nothing substantive in her complaint. She's wasted a lot of oxygen and a good amount of my time, and a lot of paragraphs and paragraphs of emails moaning about not very much. I feel for the person in the council who is on the brunt of her complaints. But these things are frustrating, right? That is not easy to dismiss. That it might turn into something. I've taken her seriously. I treated her professionally. I was very positive and polite initially. The moment she said she was going to a council, I politely and professionally closed down any contact, because I didn't want to feed her with any information that she then magics up into some additional new made up problem. But she's there badgering the council, wanting action. So we'll see. If they come and inspect, they'll see that we've built exactly what they asked us to build. I'm still not confident that something won't come out of it some way that it has an impact on us. So those are all the works that have been done. The leak has been repaired. My handyman is going to site at the end of this week. You can see there's leaves all over, just autumn. There is some guttering around the corner here that when it rains, it leaks. I think it just needs refixing. The gutter fixings are sort of snap click fittings. I think it's just one of the seals that's just come unclipped. We have a prize corner sign to go up. This lady number 1 wanted an external light because she parks her car here in space number 1 and accesses her property privately. As you can see in this photo, so one of her stipulations was she would pay full price if we put a patio in. So we did build the patio. I got her up £5,000 on the basis that we put the patio in and we put this small external light. I mean, the external light is 30 quid to buy and 50 quid to install. The patio was, I think, £1,500, £2,000. So we're net positive up on the 5 that I got her up price wise, but it's all cost, and it's not cost we originally planned, but she completed super fast. So, swings and roundabouts. So barring the stuff the handyman's doing this week, there's also a French drain at the back that's just got some vegetation, some organic matter in it that just needs clearing so we don't promote a flood when there's heavy rain, little bits like that. Barring anything like that, the handyman work that he's doing Thursday, Friday, we're done on site and in terms of cost for construction type work, apart from any sort of ongoing maintenance or any stupid floods. The water leak, we didn't have to pay for the fixing of the water leak, but we did dispute whether or not the decoration is our cost or their cost. So there was a £250 cost. It was either 250 or 450, £250, I think, for my decorator to go and do the decoration fix for that. And we just need to keep on top of all these costs. Okay. I will stop sharing. So then my last point, and I'll hand it over to questions. Dickie very kindly shared the name of another bulk buyer that he has been talking to for his Red Hill site. So I've been in discussion with them about whether or not our site is suitable. This bulk buyer was only wanting a smaller discount. Essentially, they didn't want a discount. They just wanted a 6% fee. So instead of paying 1.5% to your estate agent, you pay them a 6% fee. So a bigger fee, but nothing like 15% or 25% that we were talking about. That was looking quite promising, but they've come back and said we're not suitable for them because their buyers are all international and they won't appreciate the value of the location. If you can say London and it's on this tube line, they get it. If you can say Manchester or Liverpool, maybe they get it. Maybe Dickie's Red Hill site may or may not be good enough. I haven't actually heard if it's been finalised, but that being a slightly more city centre location.
Yeah, no, it's he has sold. Sorry, hold on. He is selling for us, and he has sold 7 in about 3 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah.
Has he done the same deal? So similar pricing, but 6% fee.
Yeah.
You didn't discount your pricing.
We didn't just know, so it's at asking as well. So it's not even a kind of net achievable price. It's at asking, and including we actually included parking with all of the units because we hadn't sold that much parking.
Okay.
And
so that's probably equivalent of a 10 grand, is it?
Well, we're actually charging 12 grand for our parking space because the most of the car park is under the sort of rear of the site is on a sloping site. So the ground floor at the rear is actually an underground car park.
Right.
And then it's got a sliding gate that goes across with a fob and stuff. So it is kind of like
quite nice.
gated
so
compound.
Secure underground, yeah. So you were charging 12 for it, but now you're giving parking away for this chap.
No. So it's asking plus parking at 12, and then they get 6% the whole thing.
6% off the whole lot. Yeah, so that's really unfortunate.
And then the thing is, of course, is you get, because we're selling our freehold, we get a freehold value for every sale that he does as well. So that might be 5 grand. So it's almost kind of no difference to us to sell through him as it is through a retail agent. But of course, you've got to balance you don't really want more than 50% investors in only one block. So we still need our retail agents plodding along very slowly.
But you could probably safely get 25% away, 30% away to him, and then you'll have some buy-to-let buyers come through normally, and then you're still below 50%.
Yeah, it's just we need to sort of balance it all the way along. So it's like you don't want.
Careful. Yeah,
we've only completed we've only had 13 completions and 8 buyers move in, kind of thing. So you don't want him to ever get ahead of the 50-50.
No, so 13 real, and then 7. He's said agreed 7. So he's catching. Yeah. Okay. So it's a shame it's not quite suitable for us. But they had a good look at it. We had a bunch of good conversations, and they've concluded that they. So if any of you are running your own sites and it's an interesting option, have a look at it for sure. You should consider it. It sounds like a version of the model that would actually be worth considering when you're only taking 6% off your full price. And whilst there is international money out there, let's go for it, but not for us, sadly, here. So my final point then, so just in terms of having a plan B, if we need to refinance next year. So just as a reminder, our dev exit loan runs out at the end of June, so halfway through next year. But I want to make sure we're ahead of that and we're ready. So I've just asked my broker just to go to, he just done some initial investigation to see, can we borrow at 70% or 75%, or what are the parameters, how does it work? And I just asked him to go to the next stage in terms of kind of essentially it's equivalent of beyond AIP, I suppose, just so that we get real rates, real lenders, they do some real rental coverage calculation type stuff. That will initially be on the basis of individual units. So we've said agreed 8, we've completed on 4 of those. If we were to have 2 or 3 units left, individual leasehold units, would we put them onto buy-to-lets and roll them forward with a view to at least having cheap finance at 3% rather than finance at 6 or 7%, which is what kicks in if the dev exit runs its course, if we've finished our 12 months.
When does that 12 months finish?
June, end of June.
End of June, yeah.
Yeah, so we've got some time, but I also know how slow financing is, and I know there's a number of you who are keen to make sure we're on top of that, quite rightly so. So I don't want it to scare any of you to think that, God, we're already planning to go beyond the midpoint of next year, but at the same time, I just want to make sure I've got a fallback option in place, ready, in case of whatever. And if we do that work and it is not required, that's brilliant. That's it in terms of everything I wanted to update on. I'm quite pleased that we're sort of now, barring the snagging, to be honest, we did a snagging visit yesterday from the internal and external works. Barring the snagging, essentially it's all done construction wise. That feels like it's dragged on for 6 months longer than it should. Stop start. So then that's where we are. Crack on with sales. I have asked my social media guy. We are getting some interest via paid advertising through Google, and I've just asked him to do a review this week to see if there's scope for us to spend more money there to get leads in that are going to help us get sales through, with Chris from Nexa being one of our agents and the agent who is the most successful, because he's very good at converting. If we have an actual lead, a proper lead, and sometimes leads from the internet aren't particularly strong, but if we have somebody, then I'd want to give them to him, not to Connells. And if anyone can make a sale, he can. So you've got to be careful with not spending money unnecessarily on Google Ads and pay-per-click marketing and Facebook. But if you look at the grand scheme of the total value of the properties, if we're spending a couple £100 more, but it's getting us leads, that could well be worth doing. Does anyone have anything else they wanted to say, wanted to ask?
Just a quick one. Could you remind me what's happening with the freehold with Prior's Corner?
The freehold is we're selling as part of, so you get a 999-year lease and a share of the freehold as part of the sale. So we looked at the values, and at the time it looked like we could probably prop up stronger values by including it, because buyers much prefer that. And there was a lot of noise about this at the time when the government was didn't have other things that were keeping them so busy. So it's included.
Okay.
That's what I'm doing on all my other sites as well, and has worked quite nicely. It does mean you lose the opportunity for the additional freehold sale value, but I mean, my experience I've still got one that was legacy of the old way, and then the 3 or 4 this way, and it does feel a bit like the solicitors or conveyancers are happier this way, but then Dickie's having success setting the freehold separately, so it's hard to judge, to be honest.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions?
Not so much a question, Rob, but just an observation really on the exteriors. Have you considered between those 2 sets of windows at the front, Just put a wide box planter with, say, a timber frame trestle behind it to make that big trestle, to make that trellis,
Yeah.
sorry, just to make that blank wall look a bit more interesting and a bit more homely.
Can you see my mouse?
Yeah,
Is that
yes,
the
yeah.
spot? We actually drew up some plans that had a trestle there, and I think maybe, well, a couple other spots as well. We have at various points had little box planters up here, but we've really struggled with the upkeep of keeping them watered and keeping them maintained. So the planters that we've used have gone. What
Did you take some photos with them there?
we do have some, yeah.
Even if you just dress the wall like you do then inside.
You know,
Right.
but actually, I think, are you suggesting not necessarily with plants or vegetation on, but even just the trestle?
Just to make the
Yeah.
sales pictures look more homely.
Yeah,
Even to use CGI to make it look what it could look like,
yeah.
to make it that wall less of a big blank boring space and a bit more interesting. Even if it tracked up between the next bit on the red hanging tiles as well, because you've sort of got this motley red tiled
Yeah, it's not
surface,
pretty,
which
is it?
kind of
Yeah.
detracts from the rest of the building a bit.
Yeah.
Your eyes sort of drawn to it, and it doesn't lift the value. Whereas if you could do something with CGI and show people what it could look like, it would lift and probably draw in a few more people.
I could very easily get the workman who's going up there now to do something here. I'm sure I could find something that he could install.
Or even just with Photoshop, just so that you improve your sales
Yeah.
pictures. That's probably more what it's about. And then you leave the residents to do it themselves.
Right. Okay, I'll look at that. Yeah, that's a good idea. It's a good suggestion. Thank you. Anyone else have anything else to say?
Yeah, I've got two questions if I can. So first one is there much of a cost each time we do a move of the show flat furniture to another flat in terms of making good or the actual move itself? And the second question is, with the dev exit loan, is the only option at that point going to be switching on to buy to let, or is there any option to extend the finance if it was needed to continue flat
Okay,
sales? Obviously,
so-
we're hoping it won't be. But
Question number one, it costs me a lot of sweat and costs us a couple £100 to
Okay.
move the show flat. So I can't do it on my own, but I do try and get involved to keep the cost down. So it's either two guys plus me or one guy plus me typically.
yeah,
So it's sort of in the region of a couple £100 in terms of the move. And then the original show flat, because we put up pictures, there was a few £100 of making good. But now that we've moved it once, we don't sort of go to town in the same way on each new show flat. So I would imagine there's less making good each time. So I'm not sure apart from the odd scuff mark, which comes every now and then occasionally anyway, and particularly with the builders being in for the top 4 flats, there's essentially no making good cost really. But there is a small moving cost. What we might struggle with though, obviously, is the furniture was the appropriate size for unit 1. Unit 8 worked well because it was essentially the same unit, just on a different floor. The sofa is relatively large, and the bed was a king size. It was a 5-foot bed, so we just got to be careful to make sure that if that's the unit we want to dress and it doesn't quite fit, it's a bit tricky. But dressing absolutely is a good solution. And unit 4, which I was very worried about when we dressed it with the landlord spec pack, that sold. That was the next one to sell. We did have to include the furniture, but at landlord spec it's a couple £1,000, not the £15,000 that we spent on the.
yeah. So it makes a good case for getting the cheaper packs then, I guess, for any future.
Yeah,
ones,
it does.
So yeah.
And I've the company who did the show furniture, the dressing, sorry, is a company called Abode, who's actually next to my Warwick site. Their office is by my Warwick site. They did the fancy dressing pack of unit 1 and the wallpapering and all of that. And they also then provided the landlord pack for unit 4. So I've asked them to price up an equivalent landlord pack for every other unit we have. And I'll pick and choose what we have and what we, whether or not, how cost effective that is, if you like. Your second question was about dev exit. So the dev exit is a straightforward commercial loan from a commercial bank. The interest rate is 5% above their base rate of 1%. So it's currently 6.2, call it, percent at the moment. There's a 2% in fee and a 1% out fee. All those fees and costs are reimbursed by the British Business Bank, the BBB. So we engage in a commercial loan with the lender and a separate agreement with the BBB, who then covers those costs, so reimburses us for those costs. We can roll that loan onto a regular commercial loan, the same loan with Hampshire Trust that we currently have, but without the support of the BBB. There'd be a 2% fee on the way in, and it would be at the same terms. Well, obviously they'd have to be their current terms available at the time of rolling the loan in June, but it would be those terms on the same loan. So essentially we'd be paying, sort of 8 and a bit percent plus 1% out. And 2 of that's gone up front as well, straight away, because it's a 2% application fee. Versus the equivalent of possibly a 3% buy-to-let type loan. It all comes down to a calculation on a spreadsheet and a judgment call as to how long each particular thing is going to take. To do. I mean, if you spent a 2% upfront fee, but if you sell the next month, that's a real. Obviously, you want to sell quickly, but actually, it's a very expensive month. You've just that month on its own, you spent 2% plus whatever the monthly interest was. At the end of June, there will be a cost to change, regardless, even if we roll the Hampshire Trust loan versus going to a new lender. Rolling the Hampshire Trust loan would probably only incur a small legal charge, whereas something else would be different. So there's a lot to weigh up. So the options are roll Hampshire Trust, go on to individual leasehold buy-to-lets. There's a sort of interim that's a new commercial loan from a long-term commercial provider like a Paragon or a Precise, or someone who would take a loan over a portion of the freehold and a chunk of the flats all in one go, whatever was remaining, basically. That would appear to be cost effective, but the redemption charges will be very expensive because they basically plan on, you've got to be in for 5 years, otherwise it's not worth their while. So you pay a huge fee to come out. So at the moment, it's likely to be just to roll the development loan or go on to individual buy-to-lets. And hopefully we can avoid all of that if we can get them through in time. If we are very close to getting them through and say there's, I don't know, 100 grand left or something on the loan, then, if it's 100 grand, it's a 2% fee. If Hampshire Trust are playing ball, they'll only charge, that's £2,000 at 2% on 100 grand. And if we happen to have it for a few more weeks, even though it's at 6 or 7%, it doesn't really matter because it's not too expensive. But yeah, it's a judgment call at the time.
The 3% buy-to-let's not much more scalable and easier to sort of enter and exit compared to the bigger loan options. Yeah,
so I mean, on the face of it, yes, because each individual one has an individual charge over the leasehold of that individual property, and you just redeem that one loan when it sells to a buyer. The equivalent on the development loan or on a longer commercial loan is you just do a partial release. So the same money gets paid back, and they just do a partial release of their security against. It becomes a first charge over not units 2, 7, 9, 12, but 2, 7 and 9 instead, and they release 12 or something. Buy-to-let, slightly less legal fees because it's a bit simpler. Either's possible. neither's preferred because obviously
Rob.
we want to sell them.
Well,
Jeff.
don't you introduce a problem if you go to a buy-to-let loan, then you haven't gone for new build and sell, you've gone for new build and keep, and therefore you open yourself up to the VAT issue, don't you?
So that's a very perceptive comment. I have on one site, I have gone to buy-to-let lending with a very, very clear communication with my accountant that makes it very obvious that we are not doing this with a view to holding. We are just doing this with a view to a refinance. And so in the right circumstances, with the right intent, sort of declared up front almost, he's allowed that to happen. But you're right, you do open yourself up to VAT. The surest, most secure way of doing it is you actually sell the property to your own entity, to another entity, so that you have got a sale from your development company, which is VAT registered and has developed to sell, so has VAT at 0%. And then you've got no SDLT to pay because it's an intra-group transfer. It's a transfer between two companies within one group, like from a topco to a subsidiary is the typical way to do it. And then you get a standard buy-to-let loan on that individual property to the subsidiary. You have to also be careful that if you have a buy-to-let loan and you put a tenant in, it's no longer a new build property. And then you don't get the Help to Buy benefits, and you can't sell with that new build premium. You still have your warranty, of course. The warranty counts the same.
Is there any way of making that buy-to-let mortgage then transferable to the buyer?
Yeah, I mean, they do that in the US all the time. I don't see that happening here, because we just have so much more of our banking system has a greater tie between that loan and you, as well as that loan and the property. Like they tie up both together. In the US, it's not always as close tying up the loan and the person or the entity.
But you can't novate over those agreements.
I've never seen it happen. You yourself can have a buy-to-let loan that you keep with the same lender and you port from one property to another, but I've never seen anyone take an existing buy-to-let loan and transfer it to a new person. I think buy-to-lets they're such a sort of straightforward vanilla product. They fit in a box, and that, if it was a commercial loan, it would be possible. Do you remember when Chelsea Football Club was bought for £1 in the 90s? They just transferred the debt. Someone Barry Bates, Charlie Bates, whoever it was, bought Chelsea Football Club for £1 and 150 million in debt, and they just transferred the loan over. But I've never seen it happen on a buy-to-let. Craig, if you ever find out it does, please let me know, because it's quite interesting. I love the idea. Does anyone have anything else? Thank you to, who is it, Steph, for your suggestions on external wall features. I'll click on those links. I no longer have Emma around, who I'm paying to go shopping, so I'll do it myself. And we'll see if we can do something either on CGI or in reality to break up that wall. Thanks for that suggestion, Craig. Okay, that's me done. If anyone has anything else, let me know. If you remember after email, I'll save the video and send the video out for those who haven't been able to make it.
Just a quick one, Rob. With you mentioning about Nexa being the better performing agent, is it worth considering getting rid of Connells in that respect and finding someone else, or will that not achieve anything?
In Chris's mind, he asks me every day. Yeah, he wants. It's the best thing in the world to get rid of the other agent. Connells do close to nothing, but they've got, number one came through Connells and another of the sales has come through them. If nothing else, it keeps Chris on his toes by having Connells involved. I'm not sure switching to another second agent, like switching Connells out and someone else. Yeah, we've already changed once. It takes time and effort. You tend to lose some weeks marketing because you have to sort of reset on Rightmove type thing. So it's not something that I'm considering at the moment, really. And we'd have the same problem with who to go to, and they promise the earth and then they wouldn't deliver. I'm at least settled into listening to Connells tell me how little they've done each week.
Rob, are they regularly rotating the pulling stuff off right and putting it back on again?
Yeah.
Yeah, doing all that. Okay, cool.
Officially speaking, we now are advertising units 16, 17, 18, and 19. You'll note that we don't have units 17, 18, and 19, but according to the Rightmove addresses, we do. Yeah, they're rotating the adverts, they're rotating the pictures, they're doing those dull but necessary steps. Yeah.
Cool.
And actually, Connells are doing that. And what Nexa is doing is Nexa is running a single advert at 190,000 prices from, like we did originally. And he's doing some rotation of photos and stuff, but he's only running one advert. But because it's at the cheapest price point, it attracts attention. And because he then chases the lead down properly, which Connells just don't do, we do turn that prices from 190 into interest. Connells, we tried that with Connells as well initially when we went to both of these guys, so they had a consistent approach, and Connells just weren't chasing the leads down properly, or the new 22-year-old who was actually doing the viewing couldn't understand what the pricing really was, or they forgot their piece of paper, and so it didn't work for Connells.
Cool.
Dickie, if anything that you're doing on Red Hill is showing particular success, please let me know. I'm sure I know you would, but
yeah, I mean, not really.
At least you're having
same old
working. It's I don't know if it's comforting to know that your traditional agents are also slow. I guess it'd be nice to hear that there was success in the market somewhere, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with Red Hill is that there's a lot of flats in Red Hill for sale. So we've got a lot of competition. And in fact, we're up against one of Glenn's schemes.
I'm sure you're much better.
Ours is actually in a better location than his.
Which is better?
Probably ours.
And which is priced higher.
And then also he completed his before all the rules came in on daylight and all that kind of stuff. So he's got loads of, internal bedrooms and all that kind of stuff.
Flats with no windows.
Yeah.
Selling a garage.
Crap flats, basically. So he's having to, I think he's selling some of his by massive discount. So, which we're obviously, so we're getting buyers going, oh, we can get this and a car parking space and this at this other development in not such a location. We're like, yeah, you can get that.
Go ahead. Yeah. Windows.
Up to you.
Yeah.
But we are actually doing it.
Crap flats, city pads, remember?
City pads, yeah, that's the bullshit, wasn't it? Yeah,
that's the nonsense.
Still crap flats, but anyway.
I have never ever built a city pad.
No, you know what? We had two, and then when the daylight rules came in, we just removed the walls and made them studios, and they're actually better.
Yeah, just take the hit.
But the only thing that we're doing now is just like a festive offer where we're like paying people stamp duty for a year and that kind of thing. And we haven't like publicly listed that on Rightmove because it looks a bit desperate, but that's like an off market. Well, that's like once people have approached and booked in a meeting and stuff.
Paying the stamp.
Yeah, we're giving people like a furniture pack as well up to a certain value, so they can go with a furniture company called David Phillips, and they get $3,000 gross to spend with them.
Yeah,
and then they get a service charge, and so we kind of that hasn't really resulted.
Service charge reduction. You pay the service.
Just we'll pay it for a year. I mean, it's just obviously we're just trying to do stuff that if you're a first time buyer, you're minimizing the actual day one spend.
Reduces the out of pocket.
Yeah, exactly.
Spend. Yeah.
So if they get furniture or the service charge paid or something, then it's less money they have to come up with. But it's not really like, I guess there are the numbers of people there are in the Red Hill market, and then there's a lot of flats for sale. So.
But it's not, we have lots of flat competition in Herc, but I'm doing, as the end of September happened, anyone who was interested, we talked about sort of extending the stamp duty holiday for them. Those buyers sort of aren't around so much anymore. I frequently am doing £500 or £1,000 towards legals.
Yeah.
And occasionally we'll throw in a dressing pack if there's one there. We're doing unit 3. I agreed to do a built-in wardrobe.
Yeah.
So that probably is a 1,500 quid cost. But I got him at £5,000, so we'll spend 1,500 to £2,000, and got him to got him to 225, and he was originally at 215. He then came to 220, and then I said, well, I'll build your wardrobe if you get to 225. So yeah, we've got him back into proper territory. Okay, fine. That's interesting. If anything does start to work well, let me know. Great. Okay, I've overrun. Is there anything else from anybody? Brilliant. Good to see you all. Hope you all have a good month, and we'll talk soon. Cheers. Bye.
Cheers.
Cheers.